Mayor, we are live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Elkhorn City Council meeting. We continue holding remote meetings while the governor's executive orders continues to be in effect due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to remind our citizens that they can submit questions for items on today's agenda, as we did in the previous meeting. Public comments may also be submitted at this time, and they will be read at the appropriate time during the meeting. Comments will be accepted up to the conclusion of the vote of the item. Comments may be submitted through the City of El Cajon's website under Agendas and Minutes. Go to Video Streaming, and you will see a button to submit your comments. This meeting is now called to order, and I would like to ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Yes, gentlemen, when I call on your name, if you can please state that you are present. Mayor Wells.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
I'm here.
Council Member Goebel.
I'm here.
Council Member Kendrick.
Here.
And Council Member McClellan.
Present.
Thank you.
Well, I think everybody can see an American flag on their screen, and so would you please say the Pledge of Allegiance with me, and then after that, I'll take a brief moment of silence. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic from which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the July 28th, 2020 meeting and the agenda of the August 11th, 2020 meeting in accordance with state law, council and housing authority policy. We have no presentations on today's agenda. And staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we do have one agenda change. On your consent calendar, there's an agenda item entitled Agenda Item 13, Request for Permission of Councilmember McClellan to be absent from regular council meetings. I think given the fact that Mr. McClellan's here, the agenda item is moot. We would recommend you remove that from delete that from the agenda today.
Remove it with prejudice. Great, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Welcome back, Bob. We're so glad you're doing well.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, that brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any consent items?
I do. I want to pull item 6.
Okay, item 6. Please remind me when we get to that. Staff, do you wish to pull any consent items?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any comments for consent items?
Sir, we have no comments for consent items.
I'd like to make a motion then to approve the consent items.
Second.
Did you want to wait till you've heard item 6 that was pulled?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Let's do item 6 and then we'll come back to it. All right, Steve, it's all yours.
I think most taxpayers would have a question about a 3-month custodial contract for $110,000. And I think city staff is just asking for an extension because you're actually looking at the cost of that contract in total and whether it's a value to the taxpayers. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we're looking to rebid it. And so we're hoping to use that to help lower or at least maintain our costs. And depending on some later agenda items, there's a building that may be removed out of that contract. So that contract may change dramatically too because of that.
To the downward side.
On the downward side, correct.
Okay. I'm okay with all that. And second the motion to approve the consent calendar if that hasn't been done already.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Wells, your vote?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz?
Yes.
Council Member Goebel?
Yes.
Council Member Kendrick?
Yes.
And Council Member McClellan?
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. At this time, Any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, or successor agency to the Elkhorn Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments related to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions. An item, of course, may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any comments?
We have no comments for public comments, sir.
I just want to point out that if you're having trouble getting your comments in because of technical reasons and need some more time, just go ahead and put your comments in now, and we can always come back and revisit this if comments come in. I'm happy to do that. All right. That brings us to public hearings. We are now at public hearings, and we have 3 items to consider. Item 14 is regarding the vacation of the walkway easement between Mona Place and Benjamin Place. And staff, would you please tell us about this? Are we having technical problems?
Mario, can you cancel your out? There you go.
We're getting there.
Such is the way of Zoom meetings.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. This is a second, actually a continuation of a public hearing that we had on June 22nd or June 23rd of this year. And essentially, I want to go back and give you a little brief background again on this particular item. I'm going to go to the next slide. All right. This is Mona Place and Benjamin Place are 2 parallel streets that join into, as you know, Chase Avenue. And this walkway easement has been in place for the last, since the 60s, and it's roughly 150 feet long, and it traverses over 2 private properties, being 1185 Benjamin Place and 1194 Mona Place. Since the last public hearing, the adjacent residents met with the property owner of the easement and offered to help to maintain the easement, post signs, and be respectful of noise. Subsequently, both owners of the property containing the easement recognized the good intentions of the adjacent residents that want to help, but they're holding firm to continue the process to close the easement. I'm going to go to the next slide to show some photos, but just for reference purposes, there's Mona Place and Benjamin Place, and so the easement is about 150 feet long, or a little bit more than 150 feet long, and it's about 4 foot wide, and it's a sidewalk going over the 2 private properties. And here's some photos just for reference purposes only. Okay. Yeah, in preparation of today's hearing, we publicly notified approximately 38 households within a 300-foot radius of today's hearing per government code regulations. So we also requested from the police department if there was any complaint calls within the last couple of years, and they mentioned that there haven't been any. Subsequently, after that process, when we notified all the residents, we received a petition from the residents who are in favor of keeping the easement open and received rebuttal letters and emails from the resident who is requesting the closure of the easement on her property. Based on written and verbal testimony that we have received from both sides, we recommend proposing this request for a period of 1 year. This will provide the opportunity for all parties involved to present any new findings in 1 year's time. So with that, I conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council members, anybody have questions?
No?
I'd like to then reopen the public hearing. And Angela, is there any testimony that the public wants to make?
Yes, sir. And the public hearing continues to be open from the June 23rd meeting. We received 8 comments on the website I received a petition with 35 people who signed opposing the vacation of the easement. And we also received a letter and a packet that was emailed to mayor and council from the owner, Margaret Jesu. So I will start with the comments, with your permission.
Yes.
And the first comment is from Gerald Fernandez, and it reads, to City Council, please vacate this easement. I'm the original homeowner at 1210 Mona Place, who has lived here for 53 years and share the same sentiments of the property owners concerning vacating this walkway for these reasons. One, the property owners should have control over who enters or uses their property. Two, privacy, security, none. It's only 9.5 feet from my bedroom window to the easement. People walking through can see directly into my property on owner's bedroom and peer into our backyards. Vacating the easement would provide privacy and security. Maintenance. In the 53 years I've lived here, only the property owners living on either side of the easement have provided maintenance. Users leave trash and dog feces in the easement that we have to clean up. Liability. Sidewalk in the easement has raised up, creating a trip hazard and financial liability for the property owners. Property tax. The property owners pay each year includes the easement, which is totally wrong. The easement users pay no taxes and not liable for any injury, not responsible for any security or maintenance. I ask each council member, would you want this easement through your property? Respectfully, Gerald Fernandez at 1210 Mona Place. Next, it is from Margaret Jesu, and again, we received a separate letter from her, but I'll read her comment. I began this process July 31, 2019. On 8/10, I hand-delivered a complete packet for the record to the city that substantiates my data. The initial recommendation of the council was to close the easement as stated. City staff evaluated the abandonment request and determined that the walkway easement is no longer necessary for its intended purpose and that keeping this access open does not best serve the public interest in the immediate area. I believe I will prove by the data presented that this easement serves a very few number of residents for the reasons they stated, lack of safety on Chase Avenue, and remains a liability to me. Those utilizing the easement are not entitled to my property. They have no liability and no cost associated. There is no rational reason for this easement is safer when the majority of people using it do not return back through, hence using Chase. According to the county assessor's office, the easement is not shown as public walkway and is considered private property. According to my title, there is no mention of this walkway easement. As noted from my data, the number of residents utilizing this easement is very low. My concern centers on liability. As noted in the data, there are very few residents who utilize this area on a daily basis. The residents on Benjamin rarely, as noted, come back through. This information shows that they are using Chase to leave or to return to Benjamin. 28 events occur at night between 8:25 p.m. and 11:57 p.m. No lighting and no clear visibility of either street until end of walkway. Number of times residents accessing on a regular basis, Howard/Lynn Stark 48 times, Benjamin Place. Mona Place. Mike Poe/Dana Finessi 9 times. Lady lives on Mona, long hair 7 times. Kathleen Castillo 4 times. Janice Shoney 2 times. And that's the end of her comment. The next comment comes from Aksua Valerie Y. Washington Woods, and she writes, Dear City Council members, we purchased the home listed above in October 2019. We live directly adjacent to the easement in question. We are requesting that the easement remain. We have had no problems with anyone who has come through the easement. There have been no problems with loitering, trash, or loud noise or parties, as described in other communications shared with this body in the time we have lived here. We checked with the former owners of this home when it was brought to our attention that this was a concern, and they voiced no concerns either. We use the easement to walk for health reasons and find that it is much safer than walking on Chase Avenue, where a fatal accident took place on the corner of Chase and Benjamin just a couple months back. Cars drive incredibly fast on Chase at all hours, and this does not feel safe. We are aware that the neighbor, directly across the easement has complained, but we have no complaints. In fact, we have cleaned up weeds, cut away grass, bushes, and spilled fruit from the trees on that lot that have spilled over the sidewalk and against our fence. We are aware that some of the neighbors on Benjamin Place have cut grass and cleaned up weeds as well. Part of our concern is that there will be no consistent cleanup and or monitoring of this area that directly sits next to our lot if the easement is closed off. We are also concerned that there will be more autos parking on what should be lawn, but currently has both a truck and a van that park there instead in the actual driveway because there are 2 other vehicles parked in their driveway. While the owner in question has stated he will keep the maintenance up to nor put more vehicles in the front yard, based on what we have seen so far, we don't have much faith in that. Please consider keeping the easement open. Thank you for your consideration. The next comment is from Edith Washington Woods, and she writes, Dear members of El Cajon City Council, first, I want to thank you for all the great work you do for our city. I am a pastor at a San Diego church and happy we purchased a home here in October 2019. Our property is adjacent to the easement located on the site map to be referenced for the hearing on August 11th. We don't have any issues with the easement being used for walking between both streets and ease of not walking to Chase, which is very busy. I sent a letter last month before the meeting. Somehow it wasn't read. Thusly, I am writing again. The things stated in the initial letter by 2 of the 4 properties adjacent to the easement states things are happening which we have not seen nor heard. Our bedroom on the main floor is next to the easement. The street is well lit at night and quiet. On the background provided for the August 11 meeting, it states that the homeowners on both sides of the easement were contacted on June 29, 2020, when a site visit took place. For the record, no one at 1193 Benjamin was contacted for the discussion, nor was our bell rung that day when someone is always home due to stay-at-home orders. The easement is between our property and the property at 1185 Benjamin. The pictures submitted of the easement include our white vinyl fencing. The trees hanging over the fence and the leaves at the bottom of the fence are from 1185. We are concerned if the easement is vacated, if the owner at 1185 will place their fence against our fence. We are concerned they might allow weeds, leaves, and trees to overgrow as they were before our other neighbors volunteered to clean it up at 1185 side. Furthermore, I would love to see a compassionate resolution to the request, which honors all of the neighbors involved, not just a couple. We all want to live in harmony together. Thank you for listening to my comments. Sincerely, Reverend Edith. We have about 4 more comments, and the next one is from Rocky Rangel, and he writes, I am in support of whatever is the just decision regarding the walkway on Benjamin Place. If the landowner retaining his property on Benjamin Place in El Cajon is lawful, then he has my support. Next comment from Howard and Lynn Stark. They write, we oppose the vacation/abandonment of the easement. 35 residents of our development on Benjamin Place and Mona Place signed a petition dated August 1, 2020, stating that we do not want it closed. This easement does not meet the requirements for vacation/abandonment. It was dedicated to the public, recorded and given to the city of El Cajon. It does not belong to the adjacent property owners. It has been used continuously since it was built in 1966 for its original intended purpose. It has a sidewalk and is maintained. It has been a utility easement. We walk through the easement daily for exercise and to walk my dogs. As so many have opposed the closure, we request this item not be postponed at the vacation request be denied. It should be noted that the CDC also recommends communities be more walkable to increase physical activity and improve overall health and quality of life. And it's a CDC GOV Physical Activity Index. Thank you, Howard and Lynn Stark. 2 more comments, sir. let me see. The next one is from Jeanette Malanga. While gathering signatures with the Starks, we heard many fond memories of resident families using the easement for heart conditions, mowing lawns, walking dogs, and forming friendships between Mona and Benjamin residents that exist to this day. Great-grandchildren of original owners currently use the easement. Closing the easement forces us to use Chase, where there is only 9 feet between a car and a person, with cars speeding at 40 to 50 miles per hour. A man and a dog were killed in front of our street on Chase. What's next? A child? My grandchild? I ask that you make a decision today to permanently keep the easement open. It has and is still used as intended by the people that dedicated it to us on May 16, 1966. Thank you, Jeanette Malanga. The last comment received from the website, unless we have one more, you can bear with me, please. No. The next comment is from Ron Atig. My wife Judy and I, Ron Atig, would like to see the easement closed for liability purposes, for the owner and for the safety of the block. Anyone can come through Benjamin and commit a crime on Mona and go back through Benjamin and leave. We strongly support the closure of this easement. We have lived here 53 years and are concerned for our neighbors in the area, especially 1194 Mona. Thank you. And as I mentioned, sir, we received a petition, and with your permission, I'll read it. I can read the names of the people who signed it if you wish to, but I'll start with the letter. And again, 35 neighbors signed this petition. It says, we, the undersigned, oppose vacation/abandonment/closure of the 4-foot walkway easement between Mona Place and Benjamin Place, south of Chase Avenue. On May 16, 1966, the City Council approved Final Map 5738 for the development of the Bart Village subdivision located south of Chase Avenue in the southwestern quadrant of the city. This signed and recorded map created a 4-foot wide walkway easement between Mona Place and Benjamin Place, intended to serve the residents on both streets to connect the 2 cul-de-sacs. This walkway easement is part of the original subdivision design. Both cul-de-sacs are posted with dead-end signs and have street lights at the bottom of the cul-de-sacs at either end of the walkway. There are no signs indicating where the walkway is. This walkway easement has been used continuously as it was intended by residents past and present since the development was built. It is an amenity in our development, both a buying and selling feature of our homes. It is a safe way to walk both streets without walking on Chase Avenue, a very busy, highly traveled road. It is also a way off either street in case of emergency. It has never been a utility easement closure. Closure would take away our rights to use. As to the concerns of maintenance, permission to trim fruit trees over walkway and help to weed and sweep was given for the Benjamin Place side of walkway. Residents completed these tasks and will continue to help. Permission to help with maintenance on the Mona Place side of walkway was declined. As to the concerns of trash and loitering, residents will continue to be respectful of privacy and discard trash properly. As to the concerns of liability, to our knowledge, there have not been any issues. Thank you for your consideration. And sir, again, if you would like me to read the names, I could, but we will go ahead and include them in our minutes for the record.
No, the petition that you have, what is it? What is the heading of the petition? What are they asking for?
Petition opposing easement closure.
That's all it says?
Yes, and then the enclosures, they gave maps and some pictures, and then what I read to you.
All right. Is that the end of the comments?
So the last comment I have is from Margaret M. Jesu, and she is I believe the owner of the property of where the easement is. And this, she actually submitted copies for me to forward to you and the council, and I did. So I sent them to you yesterday. But I will read the cover letter, and it says, Mayor Wells, attached is a packet I prepared for support of the data I have collected for 28 days/nights regarding the easement. I am very disappointed to hear after reading the agenda that the City Council wants to postpone the vacation of the walkway easement for a period of 1 year. To date, it has been 1 year since I started this progress. It is not in my best interest as a property owner to continue to accept liability for another year. I perceive this as a lack of concern of the City Council to make a just and expedient decision in this matter. What is the purpose of the postponement? ? Once the year is over, where does this go from here? ? Is the vacation automatically granted? I hope these questions will be addressed at the council meeting of which I will be in attendance via internet. Thank you in advance for your consideration, Margaret M. Jesu, 1194 Mona Place. And that is the end of the comments, sir.
Thanks, Angela. I'd like to make a motion then to close the public hearing.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please. Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thanks, Angela. We'll start with questions and comments from the council.
I have a quick question for staff. So I want to make sure I understand this easement technically is on the homeowner's property. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. It's on private property.
It's on private property. And staff is saying that we don't have, the city no longer has any use for the easement moving forward. Is that right?
That's correct. We checked with all the utilities in that area, and they responded back that we don't have any utilities going through that easement. So we don't have, as a city, no particular use for that particular easement.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple questions. Do you happen to know where the property line is? Does it split the easement or?
Yes, if you look at the slide, let me see here. Whoops. Do you see the slide that's up on the screen?
No.
Oh, hold on. Got to share the screen.
While I'm having you do that, I'll ask a question for our city attorney. Who's liable for any injuries suffered in the easement, like a trip over concrete or some other injury?
I won't tell you that we're liable, but I can tell you that it's a city sidewalk, essentially. And like any city sidewalk, we would look to the underlying property owners for their contribution if the lifting of the sidewalk, for example, was caused by a tree that was planted there. But once we're on notice, and we don't have notice except that there was a comment today of a lifting of the sidewalk, once we have notice of a dangerous condition of the sidewalk, then we have a duty to repair that, make those repairs.
At our cost?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think the slide should be up.
I see it.
Okay, it's highlighted in yellow, and essentially it runs on the northerly or the southerly side of their properties, or just north of the 50 and lot 50 or parcel 31 as shown.
I guess my question is the easement on just one side of on lots 50 and 51, or is it split down the middle of that sidewalk?
No, it's entirely on lots 49 and 32.
Okay. So, for instance, the owners of lot 50 and 51 could not change their fence line because they are at their property's edge, but the owners of lot 49 and
32.
52 could theoretically move their fence line 4 feet further south, I guess it is.
Yes, that's correct.
To cover the easement if they wanted to.
Correct.
So really, the owners of the easement are lots 49 and 52.
32.
32.
But it's 49 and 32.
Okay. And what are the addresses of lots 49 and 32?
Okay, it's 1194 Mona Place and 1185 Benjamin Place.
Okay, so Miss Jesu owns one of one of the lots that contains the easement.
Correct. She's on lot 49.
And who's the owner of lot 32?
A person named Juan Barrera, I believe.
Okay, and I don't recall, was he for, against, or neutral to this vacation?
He's in favor of vacating.
In favor, so both property owners are in favor of vacating
Yes.
the easement. Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Gary Kendrick. I have a question for Morgan Foley.
Go ahead, Gary.
Hi. That's the easement is is this for the benefit of the public? Because anybody can use it at any time.
Yes.
And typically, wouldn't their homeowners insurance cover their property for anything that happens on the easement?
Likely, very likely, yes.
Okay. And so, were there ever any utilities, or was this going across there, or was this designed solely for the benefit of the public?
My recollection of the record from way back in '66, not that I was here, but reading the materials before, is that it was solely for the public. I think Mario has already mentioned that there are no utilities, public utilities, none of ours, none of SDG&E or any other utilities that go through that easement.
Okay. So as far as we know, it's always been for the benefit of the public.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got another question for staff. Are there any other easements like this in the city that you're aware of?
I believe so. Don't hold my feet to the fire, but over there, Madison Elementary School, there's a cul-de-sac. I don't know the exact street name, but it goes from the elementary school onto a cul-de-sac, and it's off of East Madison. That's the only one I recollect in the city. There might be others.
Steve, did you get your questions answered?
Yes.
I just have a couple of questions. You may have answered this already, but as far as crimes that have happened on that easement, do we have records of any crimes happening?
No, I verified with the police department to determine if there's any calls for service there. We haven't had any in the last 2 years.
Okay. So my understanding is that the neighbors are generally in favor of keeping the easement, but the property owners that are directly on the easement are against it. Is that a fair summary of that?
Definitely. That's a fair assessment.
And then they mentioned something about it being dedicated to the public on May 15th, 1966. What is that about?
Maybe Morgan, you can help me with that. I think, go ahead.
It was a part of the subdivision map process. The city council added it or included it as a condition to approval of the map for that subdivision. And then when it became a final map, it was accepted by the city.
Okay, so at that time, they felt that it was essential that happen.
That's the assumption, yes.
Okay, and that is, do you know why?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a full understanding of it. Okay, council members, anybody else have questions?
One more question for Morgan. When the owners purchased the property, is it likely they would have been aware of that easement?
Yes, it would likely. Yeah, it's likely it was part of the title report that showed that an easement ran across their property, like any utility or other public easement might happen. Subdivision maps include those easements, especially the old ones. Not this specific one, but for example, sidewalks. And as you all may recall, many streets go to the center of the property lines go to the center of a street, as Mr. Goebel was alluding to. And in this case, it was the burden was all on lots 49 and 32.
Right, but they knew that going in to the deal then.
Yeah, they would have had notice of that based on a title report. I'm fairly confident.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, council. Well, we've heard from the public. We've asked our questions. Does anybody want to enter into discussion or make a motion?
I think since more people want it and don't want it, I think we ought to give that a lot of weight. And I think we ought to leave it open for the next year and see if there's any problems with it. So that would be my motion.
Yeah, Bob, I tend to agree. I'm concerned that the owners that have the easement going past them are not happy with it, because I could see why that would bother me as well. But of course, we have to be fair to everybody. So I think the watching it for a year seems like a good compromise to me.
Bill, this is Gary.
Yeah.
The way I look at this is kind of like I used to explain it when I was teaching real estate classes at Southwestern College. When you buy a piece of property, you get a bundle of rights, like a bundle of sticks. They never had that stick that gave them exclusive use of that portion of their property. The public had that stick to begin with. So they're asking us to give them something that they never had and to take away that stick from the public. And I don't see any compelling reason to do that. In fact, I see exactly the opposite. Even one of the applicants' own pieces of evidence indicates that people use that virtually every day, and multiple people. Kind of like a prescriptive easement, actually. Except they have permission. So I can't see vacating that easement. So I'm okay with the compromise to wait a year. But, I would be hard pressed to give away the public something the public has always had. And since homeowners insurance would cover any accidents, liability really shouldn't be an issue. But they knew about this easement going into the deal. If they didn't like it, they shouldn't have bought that property. And presumably, the market would have lowered the value of that property if it really does act as a detriment. So I think the most fair thing to do is to keep the easement there. So also, in the spirit of compromise, I will support delaying it a year.
Anybody else like to make a comment, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I made a motion.
Oh, okay. I'd be happy to second your motion, Bob, but I want to give Phil and Steve the opportunity to speak if they want to.
I would like to jump in and say that the petition, there's 36 names, but that represents 21 unique addresses. 21 unique addresses is a lot. I think what comes down, it's a question of liability. I understand the homeowner's insurance covers the liability. And certainly you can sue anybody you want to. Just because it's the homeowner's property doesn't mean the city's not going to get sued for something. So I'm concerned about the liability issue. I do agree that if you moved into that house after 1966, then you knew what the situation was. So I'm more sympathetic to the liability issue that a very limited number of people are getting a benefit, in this case, at the expense of two private parties. You can make an argument that their homeowner's insurance is inflated to cover the liability of this easement, and that whatever factor that is, the residents are enjoying that free of charge, while the two property owners who have this easement on their property are paying paying through liability insurance for that. And the city becomes a party that probably would get sued too. But I'm okay with a 1 year wait and see on this issue.
All good points. Phil, do you have one?
Yeah, really briefly, it sounded like the residents on either, I should say on both sides, want some kind of a resolution. And, we delayed the initial time to allow the residents of this community to attempt to come to some kind of agreement together. But it doesn't look like that's happened. That's, of course, the first and best solution to this is having the residents work it out amongst each other because they are neighbors. It's hard to I have to speak for the minority. The most vulnerable minority is the individual, and I think this is just the other side is we have to respect people's property rights. This is on their property, and if there's 1,000 people wanting to use it, we should still respect the individual's property and the individual's rights so they don't get trampled on. So I'm sympathetic towards that end. There's the other aspect that they knew coming into this that when they bought the property that it was going to be part of the deal, like Councilman Kendrick said. But at a certain point, when do we, stop? And when do we step in as the government? Our role is to defend people's rights and liberties, and part of that is private property. So I am sympathetic towards that end. But of course, the first and best choice is for the neighbors to work with each other and come to some kind of a agreement.
You think it's possible they could do that within that year period?
It sounded like they made some contact with each other and cleaned up. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's how a community is built, is by working with each other and knocking on each other's door and talking with each other and coming to some kind of compromise instead of coming to the government to solve your problems.
I'm thinking if they can come to an agreement, we wouldn't even have to wait a year. We could rehear this as soon as they've decided on a way that they all want to do this. Any more comments?
There are also some costs involved here. As it's been 54 years since this thing was built, and you've got some sidewalks that need to be maintained. Concrete, the edges are probably going to become uneven over time. And certainly the taxpayers of El Cajon are being asked to probably maintain this concrete from trip hazards and other things. And you have to examine what's the cost for that versus how many does this benefit. So I think the longer the time goes on, that's going to become an issue for cost.
But wouldn't that be the same with any sidewalk? And we have to. I think we have to respect the earlier council's decision that this was a necessary thing. So I think the responsibility lies on the city, like it would with any sidewalk.
Well, but this is an unusual situation that's on private property instead of a public right of way.
It's a quandary. That's why we're here. If there's no more comments, I'll go ahead and take a vote. But if there are more comments, please feel free.
Mayor, could I please ask Councilmember McClellan to repeat his motion?
Sure.
That because more people want it than don't want it, I have to speak for the majority and respect their wishes. There haven't been any major problems on the easement for 60 years about, and so I'm going to make the motion that we leave it open for a year and then discuss it at the end of the year.
Same as the staff recommendation, right, Bob?
What's that?
Second.
The same as the staff recommendation, correct?
Okay. Yes.
right, there's a motion and a second on the table. Let's take a vote.
Mayor Welter vote.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
My vote is no.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by a 4-1 vote with Deputy Mayor Ortiz voting no.
Thanks very much, Angela. All right, item 15 is a proposed amendment to Title 15 and 17. And staff, would you tell us about this, please?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, just give me a moment here to get this PowerPoint up and running. We're almost there. Can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, so let's get started. So this project was initiated by the City Council on May 26, where the City Council directed staff to draft code amendments allowing for emergency housing in order to see if allowing such a use on certain properties would have an impact on the city's homeless population. The City Council indicated that this housing strategy would include wraparound services and be temporary with a sunset date of December 2021. Now, the City Council should know that there is current state law that, including in the California Building Code, that supports local emergency housing strategies. This law allows for the adoption of lesser housing standards during a declared emergency, housing emergency, as long as these standards ensure minimal public health and safety for any occupants of an emergency housing facility. Now, the building code includes these standards in Appendix O, which are designed to ensure persons have, at a minimum, basic sanitary conditions met, and that this type of housing is safe. And so these standards have already been set in the building code so that the city would not have to create their own. However, before such standards can be adopted, a local shelter crisis must be declared, and the City Council did that back in 2018. Now, the proposed ordinances before the City Council, in this case, would allow properties that currently have a non-governmental institutional use dedicated to serving the community the opportunity for emergency housing under certain conditions and under certain criteria, and subject to standards that are designed to ensure compliance with minimal safety and sanitary codes, which are to ensure that there's compatibility with adjacent properties and neighborhoods, and link people to permanent housing as quickly as possible. Now, staff believes there's two main overarching issues that need to be addressed. And one is the need to ensure that an emergency housing facility is compatible with the primary use of which the facility is located, and that it's also compatible with adjacent properties. The second is that this proposed pilot project provides safe, immediate shelter and assistance to El Cajon's homeless population with the goal of transitioning them to permanent housing. So in terms of suitable sites, properties that are zoned for residential uses and have a non-governmental institutional primary use, we think would be good candidates for emergency housing. Now, staff has identified at least 13 properties that are at least a minimum 1.5 acres. They're also located on a primary or secondary thoroughfare. We think this is necessary so that they're, one, easy to find. We think that these sites would be large enough to support an accessory housing operation without conflicting with the primary use and provide adequate spacing for adjacent properties. Staff also believes that such emergency housing operation could be in two forms. I know you've heard of the tiny house approach. What's being proposed is a standard wood frame construction, which is found in Appendix O of the California Building Code. this would require building permits. And then the tiny house on wheels, which would not require a building permit, but would need to meet certain state and national safety standards that are proposed in the ordinance. Now, of course, the main goal of this proposed emergency housing strategy is to provide safe shelter while transitioning people from the street to permanent housing. Now, we found that in the data that we found, it shows that shelters must focus on assessment and triage while securing permanent housing, and this is proven to be a successful method or a successful model. And so to this end, staff believes that operational standards must be included and designed to provide the basic needs of those using the facility, including case management and wraparound services that are managed by an organization who's experienced with providing such services. Now, there should also be on-site security, cleaning protocols, and other measures to ensure active compatibility and good neighbor relations with the adjacent properties and neighborhoods. Now, staff is proposing to ensure that an organization has time to implement an emergency housing facility and be effective, that in the proposed ordinance, staff has proposed a sunset date of December 2023. The City Council, of course, had indicated that December 2021 would be the sunset date that they had in mind. Staff thinks time to get something up and running may take a bit of time, and to prove to be effective might also take additional time. So that's the reason for the December 2023 sunset date that's being proposed. Of course, City Council can adopt a different date. And in order to try to implement such facilities quickly as possible, but also to ensure that standards are met if adopted, staff is proposing that the process start with an administrative approval. That would be by administrative zoning permit. The permit is to ensure, of course, all the standards are met and to document this accessory use on the subject property. Building permits, if required, would then follow, and building permits would only be required for any standard construction. So these standards were presented to the Planning Commission on July 21st. The Planning Commission recommended City Council approval 5-0. And so with that, staff recommends that the City Council approve the proposed emergency housing ordinance. So the amendment to Title 17, as well as introducing an ordinance to amend the California Building Code and adopt Appendix O. Staff is available to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, also just so you know, although this is not focused on one property, we've all know that we've been in some discussions with Pastor Roland Slade from Meridian Baptist Church. We think that they'll probably be the first ones that will take advantage of this zoning change if the council pursues this. So we've actually invited Pastor Slade to be on the line to answer any questions that you may have, to kind of understand how this zoning policy would be implemented in a real world scenario.
Great. Pastor Slade, glad you're here. Are you with us?
I believe he's being promoted right now to get online, so hold on a second.
In the meantime, council, any questions for staff? I bet you there's lots.
What would be the process for the second applicant after Meridian? Am I understanding that the final approval will be given by the Planning Commission or by the City Council?
Well, the proposed ordinance is indicating that staff would approve, if these standards are adopted, that the staff would approve the facility if they can meet the standards in the code. So in order to streamline and get it out quickly, staff is recommending that staff do that. Although there is an opportunity, if the City Council wishes to do so, that such an process be elevated to the next decision maker, which could be the Planning Commission or the City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have questions? I have some, but I'll wait till you're all finished.
I have a quick question. Has there been any interest since we first introduced this from other organizations other than Meridian Baptist and Pastor Roland and the Amicus Group?
Staff has not received any inquiries into this approach. Staff has received support from other organizations commending the city of El Cajon for considering such a measure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bob, any questions?
No questions. I like it.
Okay. Roland, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Feel free to jump in on this. I got to be honest, when I heard about this, my initial thought was no way. I've seen what's happening in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, with putting people up in hotels. They're trashing the hotels, running meth labs out of them, prostitution, all kinds of crime. And I looked at the tiny houses that are going in places like Oakland, where they're turning the area into a third world country, even though I have been informed that this is different because those were tiny houses that were being put up without any permission, so that the city had no input on that. So I've been very skeptical on it, and I talked with Pastor Slade yesterday, and he explained to me that what they're looking at is very different. They're looking at the process of bringing small families in, single women with children, and they would be brought into the church community, and there would be strict rules that they had to adhere to, or they would be asked to leave. My question of Morgan and of staff is there a way to ensure that anybody who does this sticks to those standards?
Well, this would be allowing the grant of approval of a permit, and if they fail to comply with the terms of the permit, then they can be revoked and eliminate the ability to provide that housing at that location.
So we can make it contingent upon the terms that it be limited to single women with children, or that they.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. You're stepping into a discrimination type of setting.
That's my question.
Although the courts do recognize that certain age and gender discrimination issues are waived or not enforceable against certain types of affordable housing projects. But mostly the whole concept is that they would be built in accordance with Appendix O. And Tony, I'll have him, Mr. Schutz, step in to explain what the amendments to Title 17 would allow as far as conditions are going that we would look at and follow in order to prevent nuisance activities and maybe noise and other activities that kind of are brought to these locations unknowingly or unwillingly by the property owners. But Tony, maybe you could step in and explain that part.
Absolutely, Mr. Foley. So, Mr. Mayor, the proposed ordinance includes operational standards to help ensure compatibility. And what that means is that there are requirements for on-site security, that the services being rendered are professionally provided, that there's no unauthorized loitering, sleeping, or camping on the site, that there's resident check-in, and there's a requirement for a management plan, operational management plan for staff to review to ensure that the council's concerns are addressed by way of this proposed ordinance.
What about drug abuse and alcoholism? Are we within our rights to say that people have to be clean and sober to stay there?
Well, I believe that you can with the. It is not mentioned in the ordinance, but I'll leave that to Morgan to let you know if that language can be added to the proposed ordinance.
Let me just say that I think that the way the ordinance is proposed and drafted, it will be these types of homes would be regulated by the individuals who provide or the organizations that provide the space to place them on their property, and they are free to provide whatever rules and regulations that they want to for these types of things, including the obviously the absence of drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing. I can't remember if we've put anything. Tony has mentioned that we haven't put anything into the Title 17 provisions, but I want to look at the permit process. So let me come back to that if I could after I've taken a look at that.
That's fine. All right, this is for Pastor Slade. So you've heard all the things I've talked about. Are you comfortable with that, Pastor?
Absolutely. I appreciate the accountability and and know that we'll live up to that responsibility, and to know that our property, the property of Meridian Baptist Church, is a drug and alcohol free property. We don't allow, when we were having wedding receptions, we did not allow alcohol on the premises, and so that's already in our operating manual as a church. And so any use of our property at all, I mean, that's fundamental to who we are.
All right, Pastor. Thank you very much. Do you have the funds needed to run a project like this?
Well, it's going to be, if we don't have the funds in the bank today. And that's part of, I believe, why the Planning Commission extended the time, the sunset clause. We're going to have to raise the capital. Mikas will have to raise capital as well to build the cabins and to make sure that we have adequate staffing. So no, we don't have the money in the bank today. But we are working towards that. Yeah.
Well, very admirable. If you want to do this. Well, that's the end of my questions. Council members, do you have any more questions before you open up the public comment?
I've got a question for probably Tony. Would CDBG funds be eligible to pay for these cabins?
There are housing funds available to pay for the construction of such housing. Yes, it would require an application to be made. It would, of course, there's a process for that.
But wouldn't it change the kind of structure of what we could require if city money were involved? Meaning, if I've seen other programs that said you can't tell people they have to be clean and sober if you're using public money.
So there are certain conditions when using federal funds, and you raised the example, Mayor, that I think you're alluding to the East County Transitional Living Center shelter program. So the CDBG funds that are used just to provide shelter can only be for shelter. There's no other programming as such that includes any kind of religious component. That's prohibited.
So my specific question was, if we passed along federal funds or used money out of our general fund, wouldn't that kind of change the equation of requiring people not to be clean and sober to be on the property or to be able to access the program?
Mr. Mayor, I have to tell you, I don't know the full details of that. I would have to check with the federal regs to see if there's any prohibitions or constraints in that regard.
But Mr. Mayor, I'll chime in that even though we may not know that answer, we do know that with the CDBG funds comes a lot of regulations and rules that someone that's running this would have to then follow. And some of those rules may be those that are counter to their ultimate mission.
But what we're doing today doesn't obligate us to any CDBG money or general fund money at this point. So we could talk about that at a later date, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. More questions from the council?
Mayor, maybe I'll pipe in. Looking at the draft ordinance, the review would actually take a look at operational standards as well as a management plan for the use of the facilities. And at that point, the staff could be looking at how the property owner is proposing to conduct these activities, and it should give us an ability to bring up issues related to safety of the occupants, those that are needing the housing, including safety from those that may be abusing drugs or alcohol on that property. Again, it's going to be their property, and as Pastor Slade mentioned, they don't allow alcohol. They don't condone the alcohol and drug abuse, and they would probably screen these people on their own based on what availability they have there for shelters.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I apologize if it's nitpicking. I just want to make sure that we really discuss all these issues before we move forward.
I have a quick question for Pastor Slade.
Yeah.
Pastor Slade, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
And I believe we've gone over this, but just so it's made public, your intention partnering with Amicus Group is to begin offering this to, I think Mayor Wells mentioned it, but offer it to women and children first for this kind of beta test first year or two. Seek out El Cajon residents specifically, if that's the priority. Is that right?
Yes, the priority is women with children, El Cajon residents, and preferably veterans. So it's very narrow, because as we see ourselves as partnering with the city, and these are city residents that we're meaning to help and looking to help. So, not to be a burden on the city, but to be, partnering with the city to give them that bridge to permanent housing.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. Well, good. If there's no more questions right now, and I'm giving everybody a chance to jump in. I don't hear anything, so I'm going to open the public hearing and ask Angela if anybody has any comments that they want to make.
Sir, we received 26 comments. So the first one is from Jeff Dames, and he writes, I urge you to vote yes on agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. I support an emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. Next comment from Petrina Branch. I am writing to urge you to vote yes this Tuesday, August 11, regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. I want to see an emergency housing program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. Homelessness is a problem in El Cajon, the county, and the state. It is not being addressed adequately. This pilot program will help a very vulnerable population, homeless women and children. Please present my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday and vote yes. I appreciate your support and compassion in helping those who truly need it. Thank you. From Lori Perfect, please vote yes this Tuesday, August 11, regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. We want to see an emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. I care deeply about our community and those who reside here. We have a problem with homelessness in our city that is not being addressed. As a community, we need to start working to get our homeless residents off the street, starting with our city's most vulnerable population, homeless children, women and children. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday and vote yes. I appreciate your support and compassion in helping those who truly need it. From Carol Huntsman, please allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in El Cajon. Get homeless people a safe place to sleep. Many people face evictions now due to the loss of jobs, especially in the emergency situation now with the virus emergency on top of other economic and mental health problems causing homelessness. The next card submitted does not have a name, but it says, please support emergency sleeping cabins. I have seen the great work of Amicas to bring about an excellent resource for housing. This is especially needed now, and the hard work that Amicas has put into this excellent way to provide housing for those who need it deserves approval. From Jeanette Putri, I ask all council members to support Amicas Emergency Sleeping Cabin Pilot Project. This is a creative grassroots solution to one of our most enduring and challenging problems. Please vote to permit the pilot project to go forward. From, just a second, I believe this lady is submitted to, from Carol Huntsman, please support amendments to Titles 13 and 17. Please support emergency cabins and emergency housing. I do not live in El Cajon, but I have 10 family members who live there. Thank you. From Ellen Stone, my name is Ellen Stone, and I am submitting this comment to urge you to vote yes this Tuesday, August 11th, regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. We want to see an emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. I care deeply about our community and those who reside there. We have a problem with homelessness in our city that is not being addressed. As a community, we need to start working to get our homeless residents off the street, starting with our city's most vulnerable population, homeless children. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday. From Ian Cody Harrison, dear council members, my name is Cody Harrison, and I'm writing you to urge you to vote yes this Tuesday, August 11, regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city. We want to see emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. I care deeply about our community and those who reside here. We have a problem with homelessness in our city that is not being addressed. As a community, we need to start working to get our homeless residents off the streets, starting with our city's most vulnerable population, homeless women and children. Emergency sleeping cabins are not an ideal solution, but they are a very beneficial short-term solution to get people a safe place to sleep and store some belongings while social services work to find them permanent supportive housing. We need to use all the potential solutions in the toolbox to address this issue. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday and vote yes. From Herb Kelly, I am writing to you in support of the proposed City of El Cajon temporary zoning change, agenda item 15. Pastor Roland Slade, the Meridian Church community, and Amicas stand united in support of the establishment, construction, and operation of a small 6-cabin village on the Meridian Church campus. This sleeping cabin village will reflect the Amicas mission, working so that every woman and child has a safe place to live. We especially want to provide a safe place for homeless veteran women to sleep. The proposed village at Meridian is on a completely fenced site with gates that are locked at night. There will be on-site security provided by members of the Meridian Church and by residents of the village. Meridian and Amicas develop a resident code of conduct by reviewing first what the Meridian community would support. We followed that review up by site visits by 3 Amica board members to establish sleeping cabin villages in the Seattle and Portland areas. Interviews with both villages, managers, and residents were conducted to review what rules work and what did not in these long-established sleeping cabin villages. Meridian presents a secure, church-controlled, and supportive environment. Food service can be supplied by the church community using existing facilities. Restrooms already exist next to the proposed village. Showers can be brought in like the Dignity and Duwara nonprofits have been doing on a scheduled basis. Amicas is prepared to repurpose a toilet stall in an existing bathroom as a temporary shower. Social services will be provided by established El Cajon providers. We are in this for long-term success in transitioning homeless people into permanent housing. Thank you. Next is from Leah Oviedo. I support emergency housing to keep people off the streets and in safe, sanitary housing. Please do the right thing and vote to approve tiny homes so that all people in it have access to dignity and safety. Thank you. Next comment is from Amber Gorham. My name is Amber Horgham, and I am writing to urge you to vote yes this Tuesday, August 11, regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. We want to see an emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. I care deeply about our community and those who reside here. We have a problem with homelessness in our city that is not being addressed. As a community, we need to start working to get our homeless residents off the street, starting with our city's most vulnerable population, homeless women and children. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday and vote yes. From George G. Kelly, I live in El Cajon, and I am calling to urge you to vote yes this Tuesday, August 11th, regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. I live in El Cajon and strongly believe this project would greatly benefit our struggling homeless women, including veteran women and children here. I wish to see an emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. This proposed village at Meridian is on a completely fenced site with gates that are locked at night, and there will be an on-site security provided by the church members and residents. Food service can be supplied by the church community using existing facilities. Restrooms already exist next to the proposed village. Showers can be brought in like the Dignity and Duwara nonprofits have been doing on a scheduled basis. Amica is prepared to repurpose a toilet stall in an existing bathroom as temporary shower. So social services will also be provided by established El Cajon providers. Let me see. I'm sorry. I appreciate your support and compassion in helping those who truly need it and believe that this will be a step in decreasing illegal activities and encampments in El Cajon. Thank you so much for your time, George Kelly. We're halfway there, sir. The next comment is Bonnie Baranoff, and it reads, I urge you to vote yes this afternoon on item 15 regarding zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. As a resident of a neighboring community and native San Diegan, I care deeply about East County and those who reside here. As a region, we need to continue working together to get our homeless residents off the street, starting with one of our most vulnerable populations, homeless women and children. The emergency housing pilot program at Meridian, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site, will be appreciated by all. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote today and vote yes. The next comment is from Gavin Ireland. My name is Gavin Ireland, and I'm calling to urge you to vote yes this Tuesday regarding item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in El Cajon. We want to see an emergency housing pilot at Meridian Baptist Church, a safe location with extra space and supportive services on site. As a community, we need to start working to get our homeless residents off the street, starting with our city's most vulnerable population, homeless women and children. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday and vote yes. The next one is from Evie Kosower. My name is Evie Kosower, and I am on the board of directors of Amicas. I am writing to ask you to approve the temporary zone change as presented in item 15 today. This will enable Amicas and the Meridian Baptist Church, under the leadership of Pastor Roland Slate, to continue our efforts to build a small cabin village on the church property. We are looking forward to continuing to work with Pastor Slade and his church members to establish an exemplary pilot village for women and children who are without shelter. Amicus has experience with this group and has investigated other villages of this sort in other cities.
These are all the comments.
We will work with residents of the village and the community to keep them safe, well-serviced, and integrated into the community while they are seeking permanent housing.
Or does it matter?
We see this as a quick, inexpensive, and most humane solution to meeting the needs of the most vulnerable of those currently on the street. Thank you. Next comment, Shauna Welsh Levine, and she writes, thank you to the City Council for proposing this temporary zoning change, allowing a pilot project for the placement of tiny houses on suitable properties as potential homeless housing. I support this proposal. Thank you to the City Council for your time in considering this proposal. I am the president of Amicus, a nonprofit organization. We are ready to build 6 emergency sleeping cabins for a pilot project at Meridian Baptist Church. This form of bridge housing will be a viable and successful temporary option to help some of the homeless population find the safety, shelter, health, and autonomy they need to get back on their feet. This unique form of housing will help some of the homeless population take the steps necessary to find more suitable permanent housing. Meridian is an appropriate location in that they are already serving many homeless citizens of El Cajon on a regular basis. The church wants to offer more. We hope the success of this pilot program will be replicated throughout this county of San Diego in conjunction with other nonprofits, property owners, and housing providers. We expect the novel coronavirus pandemic will cause an increase in homelessness, and much of the resulting new homeless population will be citizens who are paying rent until they lost their jobs or had to trade work hours for childcare hours when daycare closed. In the coming months, we hope to build temporary bridge housing to help homeless women and children find safe places to live. I encourage you to support this agenda item. Thank you. We are comment number 18 from Sheila Stetimans. Dear members of the El Cajon City Council, I am writing to request your urgent assistance in voting yes on agenda item 15, zoning amendment allowing emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon. I want to see the emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church that would support our homeless and provide a safe location with on-site supportive services. We have to do better, so your support will make a huge difference for many. Thank you. Next comment is from, they didn't provide their name. I am happy to see that council is going through with this project. When we as a society no longer care for our fellow man, we will start to break down. No one should be denied the 3 basic things we need in life: food, clothing, and shelter. This project will give some people a chance to get back on their feet. Projects such as this have been successful in places like Detroit, Kansas, Los Angeles, Seattle, and so many other cities around the United States. This type of community may become the norm if the price of rent continues to rise. Since El Cajon has no rent control for any type of properties or land, that makes it to where property owners can charge whatever they like for rent, which in turn brings about the great possibility of people becoming homeless. From what I understand, this project would be helping veterans, women, and children. These people will have the opportunity to get back on their feet again, and this could be a life-changing experience for them and their families. I don't see how anyone could have a problem with project. It's a win-win no matter how you look at it. Next comment, and we have 6 more comments. It's from Diane Signor. I am urging you to vote yes this Tuesday regarding agenda item 15, the zoning amendments to allow emergency housing and emergency sleeping cabins. I want to see an emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church. We have a problem with homelessness in our city that is not being addressed. As a community, we need to start working to get our homeless residents off the street. Please represent my opinion when you cast your vote on Tuesday and vote yes. Next comment from Robert Bird. I am writing you in support of the proposed City of El Cajon temporary zoning change. Amicus wants to be a partner with Meridian Baptist Church and the city in leading innovative strategies to reduce those living in homelessness. We are in this long-term success with your support. Thank you for stepping up to show the residents of El Cajon what bold leadership can look like. Next comment from Lisa Kogan, board member of Amicus. I am urging you to vote yes regarding agenda item 15 to allow the emergency housing pilot program at Meridian Baptist Church. While we wait for much needed permanent supportive housing, people are dying on the streets. Our innovative solution is an immediate and temporary option that can help with our homeless crisis in the city. With San Diego County having the 5th largest homeless population in the U.S., we have no time to wait and must think outside the box to get our most vulnerable homeless women and children off the streets. We especially want to provide a safe place for homeless veteran women to sleep. Please vote yes to be part of the solution, a solution where women and children can be safe. And it includes supportive services to get back on their feet and become contributing members of society. El Cajon, let's do the right thing. All people deserve to have a safe place to sleep. Thank you. And we have four more comments. The next one is from Martha Lujan. Please vote yes on emergency sleeping cabins for the homeless members of our community. Thank you. From Bob Collins, I'd like to comment on an item. I am in support of the tiny house sleeping cabins project proposed by the Meridian Baptist Church. I believe this is a step in the right direction to house the homeless and give them an opportunity to have a place of their own and get them on their feet and off the street. Next comment from Mary Case. Let's see. You know what? I will read it, but it says, I wanted to take this opportunity to publicly thank you for your support, time, and an unanimous vote on the crisis house relocation plan, agreeing to give us the additional 3 months to vacate the Magnolia property, from Mary Case. And actually, sir, that's the last comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing then.
Second.
Mayor Welch, your vote.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Well, great. Well, gentlemen, it's open for discussion, or I'd be happy to take a motion if somebody would like to make one.
I have actually thought of a couple more questions, and with regard to, I don't know if Pastor Slade's still on. I think his picture went away, but
yeah, he's
okay. Great. So, what does it look like? Do you have a program or plan already developed with Amicus, or are you going to have any input with regard to the type of programming that's going to be implemented with this pilot program?
Well, we are going to have input, and we have not designed the program completely. We're, still talking with the providers in our community, Home Start, Path, Mary Case at Crisis House. We want to get the best of the best to put it together so that it will be, like I say, a successful program. So we haven't designed it completely, and that's why we welcome also the parameters or the recommendations from the Planning Commission.
Okay, perfect. And so you personally or someone from Meridian Baptist, you're going to have some input in.
I'm going to be sitting at the table.
Okay, great. That's what I wanted to know. You're a great neighbor, and you have been an excellent community member in the city of El Cajon. And I guess, I don't feel 100% comfortable pushing this out to every organization in the world to come to El Cajon and open up tiny houses in the city. But I feel, knowing that you're going to be at the table, and you're going to have some input and direction. It's going to be on your property because you have that relationship with the city. We know how you operate. You're a fantastic community member and neighbor to your community. it gives me confidence to approve and support this pilot program. And I don't know if we're into discussing this yet, but I would like to, if this is going to be open to other organizations, I would like to have the ordinance be changed to have some kind of review at least at the planning commission level, if not the city council level, so we can more or less be gatekeepers and know what type of organizations are coming into the city, and we can review their program. I mean, obviously, Pastor Rowland mentioned half a dozen organizations that the city already works with. I'm sure he's going to talk with Pastor Harold Brown over at ECTLC, and probably they have a great relationship, and ECTLC has a great program. But I'd like to see some kind of ability for the council to review the plans, so we can more or less be good gatekeepers to make sure that these organizations are to be as good or even better neighbors that Pastor Rowland is. So that would be my input. I'll save some comments so other people can weigh in.
Anybody else want to make a comment?
I like it.
Right to the point.
Yeah, I'll jump in. The goal of this program is really not to, the goal of the program is to show all the communities in the county the value of this program. And I think one of the great things about the city of El Cajon is that we have, for many years, found great partners in this city to run programs like this. And it is a great partnership. And certainly Pastor Rowland and Amicus, they're high-quality partners. Pastor Rowland is on the board of directors of the Regional Task Force for the Homeless. I believe that's still true, isn't it, Pastor?
Yes, it is.
So he's got great relationships and great resources to make this thing work. It's not, and Amicus has experience in putting these things together structurally. These are high-quality structures which provide safety and dignity to those who are affected. These are structures that can be another bridge from sleeping in a car to the goal of permanent housing. And I guess with that, my time is up.
Keep going, Stephen.
No, I think that's it. I've made my points. These are the right partners. And,
I'm on a council meeting right now.
And we should move forward.
So I have to sign off.
Well, then, so we will need two motions. We have to have one that amends Title 17, and there's another to adopt Appendix O. If somebody's ready to make those motions, I'd be glad to hear one at a time.
I'd like to amend the recommendation. Instead of it being approved at the staff level, I'd like to have it be approved at a council meeting. I want to make sure that the council is approving these organizations, and if another group comes in the next 2 years, I want to be able to. I think the council, it's a big move to have the city do these things, and so I would like for council to have to approve. I don't know, staff, can you weigh in on this and give me the language that I'm looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. If the council members proposing that the decision maker be the city council, then I would recommend that in your motion that you allude to the city council being the decision maker, and then we'll make the refinements to the proposed ordinance. And so that it will be structured the way it should be when we come back for the second reading.
Yeah, let me just pop in here and mention, we refer to it as an administrative zoning permit under 1740 of the code, and that provides that the director may approve or the director may refer to the planning commission, and then the planning commission would address it. The higher you get in the step, the more cost it's going to be, because you're starting to pay for permit fees, and I think the intent that the council had was that these be quick and they'd be cost effective so that people would be able to get these out there and moving them along. it's not to say that it's a bad idea to move it to something different. I'm just wanted to throw that out there so you understand the purpose of using Chapter 1740 as opposed to going to a minor use permit or even a conditional use permit process.
Let me weigh in for a second on this, and maybe Morgan, this is a question for you. We're sort of drafting policy on the dais right now, but Morgan, could the power of the authority of the land use remain with the community development director, but the council have the authority to sign off on the operation plan? And that may streamline it a bit, but would give the council members the oversight of the areas they're concerned about. Or is that just redundant?
Well, it's not necessarily redundant. The whole idea with Title 17 is to deal with the land use issues as opposed to, operation issues anyway. But you want to make sure that the use of the land is going to be compatible, and that's why we get into operational. I'm not sure how we would structure that, Mr. Mitchell, in a sense of, or council in a sense of applications and how they get moved along. It would take another couple or a month for us to revise this ordinance, because I'm not sure doing it on the fly is going to be effective to anybody. Just trying to we can't even think through what we would do, much less do it right now on the yellow pad.
Mr. Foley, if I might add, the zoning code, Title 17, does allow the director to elevate an administrative permit to the next highest decision maker. So I may elevate the AZP to the Planning Commission.
Right. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, your choice would be either approve it or to move it on to the Planning Commission for approval.
That's
Any
correct.
Planning Commission decisions always could be appealed to the City Council. It
That's
just
correct.
adds more time to every project.
Absolutely, right. Every time we have to schedule for a public hearing into the Planning Commission City Council, it does add a couple of months to the decision process.
Well, why not skip the planning commission and just go straight to council for final approval?
Well, I'm just not sure which kind of permit we're talking about now. We're not talking about an AZP, an administrative zoning permit. We're not talking about a minor permit. And if it has to do with land use, you got to go to the Planning Commission. So,
Just so I can add some color to my intention. My intention isn't to stop this. I'm in full support of it, but I think there has to be, if we're opening it to everybody, there has to be some kind of oversight with regard to council or the commission, because it is a big plan. And if our director of planning, Tony Shute, is able to elevate it, I think that's great. I just don't want it to be a check in the box that any organization can just start building tiny homes on their property in the city of El Cajon. I don't think that's prudent and responsible for the rest of the residents.
This is Gary. I have a comment. I know that we can always, a council member can always pull a planning commission item and bring it to the city council. I wonder if we could have the same thing where the staff can approve it and then it goes to the city council just to look at, and if we have a problem, then we pull it.
it's always an option, Mr. Kendrick. And if that's the approach, we can carve in an exception in this ordinance to sort of take away the anything more than a recommendation by the director. So in essence, because Chapter 1740 allows the director to make the decision or send it to the Planning Commission, if it's your decision to do so, perhaps we add language in here that says that notwithstanding that option, that the director will not be able to make those decisions, only can make a referral to the Planning Commission.
But then they have to pay for a conditional use permit, right?
No, it'd still be an administrative zoning permit. And
Okay.
but there are ways for this to go in any case, and with an AZP, either the director decides to make a decision, or the director says, I want the planning commission to make this decision. In this case, you could possibly, with this ordinance, you could take away the option of the director making that decision initially and have it automatically a referral to the planning commission.
But that increases cost, though, doesn't it?
Well, no, we have a permit fee for AZPs, and any kind of public hearing cost of that, I assume, is built into that fee.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
I guess I just want to add a point of view that the council is kind of a policy-making body, and once we start getting into management, we kind of usurp or don't show faith in the city staff to make the decisions who they know the philosophy of the city council. So that's always a concern when we start to push aside the process and to try to get into management.
I agree. I think I just would like there. It's a very new idea, very new project, and I can't get away from the idea of wanting to keep a close eye on it, I guess, is my intention. And this is going to be a 2-year process. I think when we review it in 2 years, if it's successful, then we can make adjustments and streamline things at that point. I think that's a good point, Steve.
So let me ask Graham. Graham, you feel like you're pretty comfortable and understanding what the council is looking for in regard to this?
I think so. I think my concern would be if this were not going to sunset in 2 years, I would see some value in having a little bit more oversight. But the fact that there is a sunset, this is a pilot program. We're gonna be letting the council know kind of all of our steps that we're going through. I think the concerns that Mr. Ortiz has expressed, although I agree with them, I understand where he's coming from. I think staff will do our best to ensure that council concerns are heard, and we'll socialize issues if up the chain if we are concerned. Because Tony has that discretion right now.
I'm okay with that. Thank you,
Yeah, I have confidence in the city manager and his staff to say I would have if there was an organization that was not as experienced in trying to do something like this, I bet we would hear about it and have a chance to weigh into the city manager any concerns before any decisions and permits were issued.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification, Graham, and I keeping us up to date and informed on if there's any more organizations, I think is paramount, and I appreciate your attentiveness to it.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the next ordinance in order, which holds a first reading to amend Title 17.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
And with your permission, sir, I will read the title of the ordinance.
Yeah, please.
An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning code of the El Cajon Municipal Code and adding a new section 17.225.185 to Chapter 17.225, allowing for emergency housing on select sites under specific criteria.
And I'd also like to make a motion to hold the first reading to adopt Appendix O and to hold a public hearing on September 8th.
Second.
Second. This is Gary.
Thank you. Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Goble,
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote. And the title for that is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of El Cajon adopting by reference Appendix O of the California Building Code 2019 edition to provide for emergency housing in the City of El Cajon.
Great. Before we move on, I want to thank staff for all the hard work they put into this. And I want to thank Meridian Baptist Church and Roland Slade for offering to fund the project and use their property. I think it's admirable, and I'm hoping to see great things. The last public hearing on today's agenda is item 16 regarding Parkway Plaza self-storage. Staff, would you tell us about this, please?
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Here we go. Parkway Plaza personal storage facility involves the amendment of specific plan number 19 to allow a personal storage facility with an approved conditional use permit at 575 Fletcher Parkway. The request is to occupy the existing 70,475 square foot basement space used by the previous tenant, Sears. The request also includes 2 ground level storefront entrances to be used as office space and elevator access to the basement for customers. The existing loading dock would not be available for general use by customers due to the lack of building code and lack of ADA accessibility requirements, although it would be available to be used by professionals such as a professional moving company for larger unloading if scheduled with the tenant. An operational plan is required to ensure safe operation and safe loading and unloading by customers. Lastly, a development agreement is also being proposed. The site has a general plan designation of RC, or regional commercial, as well as a CR zoning designation. The property is also governed by specific plan number 19, which governs the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center. All development standards for personal storage facilities have been met and addressed along with the loading and unloading layout. The existing basement space has limited capabilities, and staff has found a personal storage facility use that operates efficiently would provide a business opportunity to utilize an otherwise unused space. The site would include designating parking spaces within the existing parking lot for loading and unloading, as well as providing availability for oversized vehicles. Staff is also recommending a CEQA exemption for this project. The development agreement is intended to account of sales tax offset contributions. The regional commercial zone is intended to accommodate regional commercial centers and promote retail sales. The proposed agreement is designed to offset the existing basement spaces sales tax potential by remitting $12,000 annually for a period of 10 years to the city. The aerial image here shows the subject area, which includes the storefront access to the north and south of the building. The site plan indicates the ground level storefront areas and nearby designated parking spaces. The blue highlighted spaces to the right indicate the north side, which provides standard size spaces for standard vehicles, while the left side indicates the south side spaces available for oversized vehicles such as large trucks. The north elevation shows the remodeled exterior storefront entrance that has consistent appearance to the rest of the tenants, as well as a standard retail design. The south elevation also blends well within the adjacent tenants, providing a retail appearance. The floor plans show the layout of the ground level spaces, which include elevators, for customer access, as well as an office for processing new customers. The basement floor plan provides a proposed layout of the storage spaces, which vary in size, typical of standard storage facilities. Here, the project renderings present the incorporation of the exterior design with the other tenants, as well as proposing a somewhat hidden appearance of a storage facility, not typically seen amongst other facilities. On July 21st, 2020, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council, meeting the findings required for an amendment to the specific plan and a conditional use permit. It serves the public interest by providing storage opportunities for the public, utilizing an unused basement space, and the exterior modifications integrate well with the rest of the remodeled building. It will systematically implement the city's general plan by identifying an area and opportunity for a commercial redevelopment, as well as the continuation of specific plan number 19 that currently governs the shopping center. Therefore, staff recommends City Council to move to adopt the next resolution in order approving CEQA exemption, amendment to specific plan number 19, conditional use permit 2019-0010, and adopt the next resolution in order authorizing the city manager to execute a development agreement with Seritage Growth Properties, LLC. This concludes staff presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks for that report. Council members, any questions?
I do have a question. So if the loading dock can only be used by professionals, does that mean basically only that which fits through the front door can go into the personal storage units?
Well, the loading dock will be available, but they would have to schedule like an appointment to use that. So if, for example, if a customer has a large product that needs to be stored, they would arrange with the tenant to schedule to use the loading dock. But the storefront entrances on both sides are kind of standard size of doors.
So can a customer with a U-Haul unload a washer and a dryer that came out of their home?
They could, if they can use their vehicle for the oversized vehicle spaces. I can't confirm that it would fit through the doors. We would probably have to defer that to the applicant. But
I guess what I'm saying is they can't use the loading dock for that U-Haul truck. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. I mean, unless they arrange to hire a professional mover to do it.
And Mr. Goebel, we do have the and other council members. We do have the applicant and the operator on the line as well. So if we have questions for them, they're available.
Yeah, I'd like to hear their point of view. Do they agree that a private party with a U-Haul truck could not use a loading dock to unload a washer and a dryer, that it would have to go through the front door?
That I'll have to defer to the applicant. The vehicle, the U-Haul vehicle could park in the oversized designated parking space, and they can utilize the front door. I just can't confirm that size of a product.
We asked the applicant to comment on this, Graham.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Oops, sorry, Graham. Thank you, Mayor Wells and members of council and staff. I will say a couple of things, and I also have Matthias Kilmer, who is with Extra Space Storage here this evening. So he can certainly answer any additional operational questions that anybody may have tonight. My general comment, Councilman Goebel, if I understand your question, we are okay with limiting the use of the loading dock as staff has recommended. The entrance on the south side would be big enough that somebody could bring a larger item through that door and then access the freight elevator to go down to the lower level. I don't know if that answers your question, but that.
Yeah, it sounds like the ground level retail door is a double door that could open up to accommodate something like a washer.
That is correct, sir, yes.
Or a mattress or something large.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
Where is the oversized parking? Oversized vehicle parking on the south side?
Yes, sir. And on the screen now, you can see where that is located.
And that is on the Walmart side of the parking lot?
Correct.
Okay. And that is around the corner from the front entrance of Bob's Discount and Burlington?
That's correct, sir, yes.
Okay, all right. I'm kind of going with the aesthetics here. If I was an owner of Bob's, I would say, hey, I don't want a bunch of U-Haul parking spaces in front of my front door as people are walking in to get this nice furniture. They're seeing some used things get out of a U-Haul truck, but if it's around the corner out of view, I think that addresses that question.
Yes, we share your exact concern, and that's exactly why these spaces were located where they are, which is effectively more of a back of house than the front door of any of the tenants.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, Graham, this is Bill Wells. I just have a question. I know the answer to this, we've talked about it a couple of times, but maybe if you could just explain to the public why we're doing such a unusual thing to have a storage facility in a mall. And I think most people would have trouble understanding why we would allow such a thing. Can you explain that you're thinking on this?
Absolutely. Mayor, I got to tell you, I was at first pretty resistant to the concept just because self-storage at a regional mall, the largest regional mall in San Diego County, didn't make sense to me. But as I delved into it, I began to understand some things. The other thing I should point out, one of my concerns was the fact that self-storage doesn't generate sales tax, and typical uses at malls do generate sales tax. So on the sales tax front, we've looked at sales tax at other Bob's Discount Furniture, Ashley Furniture, and Burlington Coat Factory, sort of the prototypical around the state of California. If you were to take those sales tax cumulatively over a 1-year period, they will be generating more sales tax than our Sears was generating the last 5 years of their existence at the mall. So from a sales tax perspective, I'm a little bit more comfortable utilizing that space for non-sales taxable uses. The other challenge with that space is that Sears was not retail space. That 70,000 square feet was really used by Sears as storage space. I actually got a tour of it. It's pretty basementy feeling. The floor to ceiling height is pretty narrow, could not be used for a traditional retail space. We actually asked the applicant for a lot of different possible uses: restaurant, bar, bowling alley, laser tag. I mean, you name it. We were exploring every option, and they explored. In fact, they showed us some due diligence of them talking with a lot of possible tenants, but every tenant came back with a massive concern about the floor height or the ceiling height. So it was pretty clear that it wasn't going to work. So the self-storage might be the very best use there. Ultimately, let's face it, the way that malls are going to survive into this next decade or so is the infusion of housing into mall properties. We're currently exploring that with the mall owner, and apartment complexes and condos and townhomes utilize self-storage abundantly, and so this may be a really good compatible use in the end.
Okay, well, that explains it. I appreciate you taking the time to tell us about this. There's no windows in there either, are there?
There are no windows.
Yeah, so it's almost,
it truly is a basement.
Okay, then. Angela, do you have any speaker cards on this item?
We have no cards, sir.
Okay, then I'll bring it to City Council to discuss and make a motion.
One more question for staff. You know, with a lot of people's stuff in a basement, has the fire department been part of this process in looking at this?
Good question.
Yes, they have. Our building official / fire marshal was involved in the review and involved in numerous meetings with the applicant to address those requirements.
I think that gives the public some comfort because you don't really know what's going into people's units down there, and boy, it would just be disastrous for everybody to have something not addressable by a fire prevention. And so I'm glad to hear that they were part of it. I think Seritage has brought the community some great value with this piece of property. They brought Bob's, which is a great retailer. Burlington's a great retailer. It's comforting to note that the sales tax being generated or expected to generate is going to be as good as the former use of the property. So I think Seritage has done their best efforts to do this, and I agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Great. Would you like to make a motion?
I'll move to adopt the next resolution approving the CEQA exemption.
Second.
Angela?
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Goble,
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick,
Yes.
and Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And I'll make a motion to amend, or if you could put up the recommendation slide, I think there were 4 of them, to amend specific Plan 19 would be the second motion.
Second.
Mayor Wells, your vote.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz. Deputy Mayor
Yes.
Ortiz, thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Goble,
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick,
Yes.
and Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
If we could throw that slide up, that would be helpful. I think the third one was move to adopt the revision to the conditional use permit number 2019-0010. Is that good by memory?
That's right.
Second.
Mayor Wells, please.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Goble,
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Steve, I've got them written here. Go ahead and take over from here.
Go for the fourth one. That's as good a memory as I have.
All right, that's pretty good. I'll make a motion to adopt the next resolution in order approving amendment to specific plan number 19.
Second.
No, we already did that one.
We did that?
That's the one, Steve.
It was the fourth bullet point on the slide. I haven't seen the slide.
Yes, to the development agreement, please.
It's I can make the motion. Authorizing the city manager to execute and deliver the development agreement with Seritage Growth Properties.
I don't know. I'll second.
Second.
Hey, there it is.
Mayor Wells,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Goble,
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick,
Yes.
Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Great. And is that all of them?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, well, good luck. We look forward to seeing it completed. Let's see. Okay. We're at administrative reports now. We have 2 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 17 is regarding the North Marshall Dog Park. And staff, would you tell us about this, please?
Sorry, Council. We're going to do a little bit of a not so fluid transition between Sanan Kachi and myself on this presentation. So I just want to ask for your patience as we transition between us back and forth. My name is Frank Carson, Parks and Recreation Director for the City of El Cajon. We want to introduce potentially a new park in the city. It is right now referred to as North Marshall Dog Park, and it's a pocket park in the location of the animal shelter. So this was done through very generous cooperation with the Urban Corps of San Diego County and Toro, working with our Public Works Department. And I'd like to introduce now Sanan Kachi. As I transition over to him, just be patient as we do transition. Give me a second.
Frank, good to go. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. As Frank mentioned, I'm Sanan Kachi, part of the Public Works Department here at the City Engineering Division. Back when the city completed construction of the animal shelter in 2018, there was still even more potential at that property. Through grant efforts by city staff and the generosity of the Toro Land, Water, Thrive Green Space Enhancement Program, our staff designed and built a new park in the city, which includes off-leash dog area, picnic area, and landscaping. What was once an empty dirt lot is now a great park area for our residents. I'd also like to acknowledge the city's park operations staff for their heavy involvement in this project. Aside from constructing some of the improvements at the site, they provided valuable training to journeymen and women of the Urban Corps staff. So thank you to Martin Bitterling, Parks Operations Manager, and all city staff involved on this project. You can see some pictures of them there, volunteers in the top picture. And our current product on the bottom picture, that's a grass turf paver area that's growing in nicely. We're going to give it a couple more months there. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for staff? All right, Angela, did you receive any comments for this item?
No, sir, no comments.
All right, I'll take it back to council. Looks like a good project. Don't see any problem with it. Anybody have any discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I move the recommendation of the staff.
Second.
Mayor Welzer, vote please.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick.
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan.
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Well, thanks staff for this. My dog Doc is sitting right next to me sleeping. He seems not to be understanding what just happened to him, but we appreciate it. Okay, we're at the last administrative report, item 18, regarding animal service in the city of El Cajon. I'd like to ask staff to please introduce this item.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I hopefully you can see my screen in a second. Okay. As you know, the city has been seeking ways to always efficiently provide services to our residents. So part of that includes analyzing things that we do, analyzing the way that we do things. And some of that analysis over the years has resulted in the city contracting out things that some cities traditionally have done, and certainly the city of El Cajon has traditionally done, such as janitorial services. We talked about that earlier today. Street sweeping, something we implemented almost 2 years ago. Landscaping services in our parks and our medians, something that we're currently exploring, and RFP is about to go out on the streets for that right now. So there's a lot of things that we're exploring on, are there better ways to do things or more efficient ways to do things? We have been over the years talking to San Diego Humane Society. In fact, we were talking to them prior to building our animal shelter and it was some negotiations. I mean, it got to the point where the city was negotiating maybe some contracted services with them, and for the city's purposes and for San Diego Humane Society's purposes, it just didn't make sense. So since the building of the shelter, we have been talking about that very topic of what that would look like. So we're presenting as part of today's agenda item sort of an overview of some of the services that the city provides to the community, an analysis of what would happen if the San Diego Humane Society took over or we contracted out with the Humane Society for services. We looked at some fiscal considerations, and then staff will end with a recommendation based on our analysis. So we're going to stay on Marshall. Just to the left of it is the new park that you just heard about. But this is our new animal shelter that was built a little over 2 years ago, or opened up 2 years ago. We currently, this last year, I should say, we housed a little over 1,500 animals at that site, almost equal amount of dogs and cats, and then 75 other animals such as rodents and small mammals. We were able to adopt out 757 animals through our adoption program. And we do have 7 full-time staff, 1 contracted veterinarian, and then 3 part-time staff. So we have about a complement of about 10 staff that currently operate at the shelter right now. And we operate 5 days a week, 7 hours each of those days. So as I indicated, we had been talking with the Humane Society actually for many years, and just the time didn't come. It wasn't the right timing, but staff believes that now maybe the timing is right to consider a contractual relationship with the San Diego Humane Society. So in thinking about that, we analyzed a couple aspects that they bring to the table. One is we looked at their field services and their educational component. They currently provide field services, and that includes the full gamut of animal control, investigating abuses of animals, dealing with nuisances such as dogs at large or barking dogs or loud animals. And so they currently provide that service, something that we currently do, to 12 of the 18 incorporated cities in San Diego County. So they have a track record in this county of providing that service. They also have a really robust education program, and they bring a lot of resources to educating the public on pet ownership and animal behavior. We also know that they do a phenomenal job operating shelters around this county. They currently operate 3 campuses outside of El Cajon and within the county, and they have a wide variety of types of shelters that they operate. Staff has toured their shelter, their main San Diego shelter, are very impressed with the cleanliness of their operation, their customer service orientation, things that I think exemplify the things that we're trying to achieve at our shelter, and I think that we have been able to achieve. We also know that the Humane Society brings a pretty robust emergency response program, something we currently don't have with only 2 animal control officers. But during an emergency, they have the ability to bring team members throughout the county that they have to deal with issues of emergency and specifically how they relate to animals. And they have the ability to deal with larger animals, exotic animals, things that maybe we don't have as much of as there are in more parts of East County, but they do have that capacity, something we don't have right now. Lastly, we looked at the types of fees that they charge. We do know that our fees are much lower than the county average. The Humane Society's fees are more in line with the county average, so their fees are for the most part higher than ours. So in some areas they're a little bit closer, but I think it's fair to say that our fees have probably fallen behind because we haven't paid attention to upgrading those fees or updating those fees over the years. Based on that analysis, we thought we'd look at sort of the fiscal considerations or a fiscal analysis. We know that it costs us about $1 million to provide animal services to our community through our in-house program. We think we could provide that same service for about the same amount with the Humane Society. We know that by contracting this out, this will not have an immediate impact on our pension liability, but long term it should have a lowering of our pension liability. It also frees up a valuable police sergeant. We currently have a police sergeant that supervises that facility, and we'll be able to transfer that police sergeant back into the police department, really essentially adding us a police position without costing any money for that. And we also know that the Humane Society provides a much more thorough program. We know that our shelter hours will increase by 50% if we were to go with them. Field and education services are, like I said, very robust, and I have a lot of confidence that they can serve our community well. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council seriously consider a contractual relationship with the San Diego Humane Society. That would mean staff bringing back an animal services agreement for council consideration, as well as a lease agreement for them to operate our shelter. We think that that agreement can include some provisions that would allow us to recoup some costs as dogs or animals from outside of El Cajon are stored at the animal shelter or housed at the animal shelter. We can charge a fee for those animals, and those fees can help pay for some long-term sustainability of that facility. So I think there's an upside that we currently don't get out of that by having a long-term lease agreement with them. And if we were to do that, we would remove that from our janitorial service contract, and that would help reduce some costs there. So staff's able to answer any questions that you may have about our analysis. I should also mention that the president and CEO of the San Diego Humane Society, Dr. Gary Weitzman, is on the line. He's about to dial in a second or be promoted. He'd like to make some comments too as part of this presentation. And then Michael Lowry, the CFO for the Humane Society, and Juliana Tetlow, the Director of Government Relations, is also here to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, Council, I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Great. While we're waiting for our guests to come on the line, let's see if there's any questions for staff.
What's our current utilization of the animal shelter? 50% of capacity, 75?
We're the last I talked to animal control staff is we're probably at 50% if we were to go into our max mode. And as you recall, you've taken a tour of the facility. There's the ability to take one space and make them into two spaces with a door. That's not a good long-term solution. So when I say half capacity, that assumes sort of the most cramped conditions, which is not long-term sustainable. So Mr. Goebel, probably about 75% right now, which includes La Mesa's animals. So there's a little bit of capacity for us to grow or take on additional animals.
Does the $1 million cost to us include income from La Mesa?
It does include the contract with La Mesa.
Okay, so there's room in the facility to handle more pets than just El Cajon and La Mesa.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's a revenue possibility.
Correct.
Okay. The fee schedule that's in the staff report, the El Cajon fees for dog licenses are lower in most cases than they're higher than the regional average, but lower than the Humane Society.
Yes.
So my question is, do we have, if we adopt the Humane Society rates, the risk is people stop licensing their pets. And then all of a sudden you went from X amount of income to less than that because some people say, you know what, that's too big of a jump in the fees, I'm out. What percentage of the revenue was from dog licenses?
That's a good question. I have a graph that kind of shows that. This shows all of our animal service revenue by source last year. So I'll start with the two smallest. The smallest two amounts are fines. Our goal is not to generate revenue from fines, and then donations. We got about $10,000 between those two. Licensing fees made up about 23% of our overall revenue, almost $50,000. But the biggest revenue source was sheltering animals, impound fees, and then fees associated with the sheltering of animals, such as medical vet fees. And just so you know, about half of that is La Mesa animals and half of that is from El Cajon animals.
So 50,000 in licenses and permits is roughly 5% of the total cost. 50,000 is 5% of $1 million of cost. So it's not like the licenses are covering the majority of costs for us. So even if we took a hit of half of the licensing and permits fees, we're not talking about a devastating impact to the financial sustainability of this center.
That's a good analysis of that scenario.
Okay, I'm more concerned about the risk on the income if people see a large increase in fees. Okay, those are the only questions I have for now. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is probably for staff. I'm assuming that if someone bought a dog license for their dog today, if we move forward with SDHS, it's going to be honored for the remainder of that term, correct?
Absolutely, and I don't know this 100% sure, but I think we use the same licensing program as the Humane Society, and so we would just transfer our records to the Humane Society. So if you had just bought a 3-year license, for example, that record would show in the Humane Society's records for a 3-year record or license.
That's great. And then for the San Diego Humane Society, are those how are their fee schedules increased? Do they do them every year? Do they do them every 10 years? I mean, we're seeing these fees right now at a point in time, but what does that look like moving forward?
Mr. Carson, I don't know if our Humane Society folks on the line right now.
Yes, they are, sir. They should be able to unmute themselves.
All right. Dr. Weitzman, that may be a good question for you.
Oh, there we go. I didn't know I could unmute myself. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Mayor, council members. It's good to be able to meet you, at least via Zoom, to start this conversation. As far as our increases in our license fees, we usually do them in concert with the municipal contract, depending on the city's requirements. So we only increase them when we've also talked to the city about it and have an actual schedule for increases. Our Director of Government Relations, Juliana Tetlow, actually manages that contract. She may have a little bit more information about the increase on license fees, but I can tell you they're very conservative. And then regarding license revenue overall, we really have a program where we increase or are trying very concertedly to increase the number of licensees in each jurisdiction, not just to rely on the income coming in from existing licenses. So licensing a dog is absolutely critical to the program. We're working now in 12 cities throughout San Diego County and have a large staff that actually works on licensing. And we do use the same type of program that you've already got in El Cajon, but we also have a very big online application for it as well. So it's very easy to use. It's very customer friendly, and it's very, really, truly very 21st century in that everybody can do it online with a terrific license, very visible on each dog's collar. I don't know, Graham, if you'd like Juliana to add any more details about licensing, but I'm pretty sure she can.
Certainly.
Hi, everybody. Juliana Tetlow, Director of Government Relations for San Diego Humane Society. It's very nice to see you all today. As far as increases in our fees, prior to the inception of the City of San Diego contract, which we took almost 2 years ago, they had not been increased in a number of years. And the impetus for our increase was actually aligning with the county, who recently also did an increase, and it had been nearly 2 decades since they had done it too. So they don't happen often. And when we do them, we make sure that we have a discussion with all of our municipalities about the cost increase and the timing and making sure that there's agreement across the board. And as Gary mentioned, I just want to reiterate, we actually do have a pretty robust licensing compliance program where we work very hard to bring up the amount of licensed animals in each municipality through education, just letting people know that it is a requirement of law, and if necessary, working with them to make sure that they can afford to license their animal, make sure that they can get all the necessary vaccinations prior to licensing their animal, and really being a partner with each community member and making sure that they can license their animal.
That's great. Thank you.
Good. Well, council, any more questions before we go to public comment?
Yeah, the fees that the Humane Society has listed in the staff report, are those the same fees that are charged throughout the 12 other municipalities, or are those fees set by contract with each city? How does that work?
There are two exceptions to the fees. The City of Vista and the City of Oceanside already had pre-established fees, which we've honored. The rest of our municipal contracts all share that same fee schedule that's before you. Okay. The ultimate goal, just for the record, the ultimate goal is to get everybody on the same fee schedule, but that takes time with each jurisdiction.
So with the compliance part of registration, do you have a program that promotes the value rather than the requirement?
Absolutely. So as Gary mentioned, we have an online partner. They're called Pet Hub. And one of the things that we're actually gearing up to do right now is starting an educational campaign on the value of licensing, in that it actually gets your pet back home quicker. Microchips are also a fantastic way to get your pet home, but when you have that tag that allows folks to quickly identify where your pet belongs, ultimately we hope that with licensing, with an increase in licensing, we'll be able to actually bypass the shelter as much as possible in getting pets home to their families through that program. So that's actually coming soon.
Do you have any discussions or thoughts about how to increase the utilization of the shelter and try to offset some of the costs with more pets?
I'll let Gary answer that.
Well, I was getting overly excited there. I was going to say we also we're providing a lot of services that actually we will not be charging the city for, and those are really safety net services and education, as Graham mentioned, as well as use of our kitten nursery, our behavior center, our shelter medicine programs, and also our community programs, which are spay neuter, and eventually community access to veterinary care for people in need in East County. As far as increasing use of the shelter, I think you've already laid the groundwork for that. The dog park right adjacent to the shelter will be a big draw, I believe we all do, for people to come into the shelter. And what we want the shelter to be, we're really doing this in all of our campuses, and this will be the fourth one in San Diego County, is really a place where people can convene to access animal services. So everything from education and possibly career camps for kids to seminars and a food bank, supply bank for people in need that for their animals, as well as veterinary care. So the idea really is to make it a magnet for people in the community to come and receive animal welfare services all in one place. And you've built a beautiful shelter, and we really are looking forward to a partnership with you. We're really humbled by the idea to be able to partner with the city of El Cajon to provide the services to our East County constituents that we've been doing all around you, but not actually in El Cajon. So I just want to thank you for that opportunity and considering this. And just finally also say that Sergeant Trotter, who now heads up the animal services work for El Cajon, we've been working with for a number of years, and it's been a pleasure working with him and as much with Graham this last year to get it to this point.
So do you have some shelters where you just have no more capacity, and El Cajon would provide an opportunity to relieve some of the pressure on some of your areas?
We sure do. The city of San Diego all by itself can fill a number of our campuses. And we direct most of those animals to, obviously, our Gain Street campus, just for convenience. However, we will be able to, we are contracted with Santee as well. And so Santee residents will be able to access their animals at the El Cajon shelter. So that will be, I think, a very beneficial partnership for both the Humane Society and the City of El Cajon and Santee to be doing this.
So you're saying Santee people may not have to go to some other shelter. Where do they go now?
Our plan, they come to Gain Street in San Diego, so our main campus. They'll be able to go right to just go to El Cajon instead. So it'll be much more convenient for them. And we know if the more convenient it is, the more chance we have for people to actually reclaim their pets. So it's really important that accessibility be right there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Angela, do we have any public comments?
No comments for this item, sir.
Okay, great. Then I bring it back to council. And if there's any more discussion, let's have it. Or if someone wants to make a motion, that would be a good time.
I think it's a great idea. I just want to commend staff. This is another example of public and private partnerships. You know, you hire someone better than you and get out of their way. And I'm a huge fan of the San Diego Humane Society. Just a year ago, there was a hawk on Washington with a sticky trap in its foot. And we brought it to the San Diego Humane Society, and I was floored with their level of service. And each one of their staff was their own. They took it upon themselves to. They're their own. Each of them are heroes. I was really impressed with their ability to interact with us and the animals, and so I'm a huge fan of them. And we're reducing our pension liability, increasing services. I think it's a great move. So I'm in favor of it.
Any other thoughts, council?
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. I agree with Councilman Ortiz's view on the San Diego Humane Society. Staff did a visit and said what excellent operations they run. This is going to increase the hours to the public by about 50% without increasing the cost. It's going to perhaps double the staff. It provides more utilization of our property, which could possibly lower the overall costs to the city. And I think their expertise in providing value for what they do is excellent. So I agree with the recommendation.
Excellent. Well, would somebody like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, Angela?
Mayor Wells, your vote, please.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ortiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Goebel?
Yes.
Councilmember Kendrick?
Yes.
And Councilmember McClellan?
Yes.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Well, congratulations, everybody. We're really excited to see you come to town and like to come visit and see what good programs you put in. And we thank you for taking good care of our dogs and cats and iguanas and whatever comes your way. So thanks.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, with that direction, we'll be bringing back a lease agreement and an animal services agreement at your first meeting in September. So that'll be on your plate again.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, everybody. There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 19 is my activities report, which is as reported. Item 20 is a legislative report, and it is as reported. Vince, did you have any clarification here, or did you want
to? Mayor and council, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Everything is still floating around the individual committees. Nothing has moved appreciably. There is one other item that doesn't appear on the legislative report. It's SB 1383. It's opposed by most chambers of commerce, including our own. It mandates 12 weeks of family leave under certain circumstances. It also opens up liability for the business owner, and it is specifically targeted to small businesses of 5 employees or more. It mandates that the 12 weeks of leave can be taken in as small increments as 1 to 2 hours. So it could go on for quite a long time. It's got a lot of opposition. It doesn't appear on your report, but we continue to watch it closely, and I will update the report and add it to there and to the list that I'm watching. So that's the only new thing I have to report.
Appreciate that, Vince. Thank you. Councilmember Kendrick, how about your activities report?
As reported.
Councilmember McClellan.
As reported.
Councilmember Goebel.
As reported.
Deputy Mayor Phil Ortiz.
As reported.
There are no joint council member reports today. There are no general information items for discussion. There are no first or second readings of ordinances on today's agenda, and there are no closed session items. So this brings us to the adjournment of the regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 11th day of August, 2020. It is now adjourned until Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you all very much. Thank you, staff. That was a long but productive meeting. I'll see you in September. Thank you.